Okay, hi everybody. Okay, we're into week 3 now. All right, last week we picked up, we were talking about domestic containment and kind of setting the stage for the dominant culture and the kind of mode and kind of routine or things that we're going to try to do to protect the American way of life, protect those American values that they saw being under attack from a lot of different sources, both internally from pop culture and what will soon be counterculture things we'll see, as well as outside threats like communism. Right, in this post-war era as we kind of move into the Cold War as we're talking about. One of the things this week we look at is the thing called the surf culture, right? That West Coast kind of laid back, kind of on the beach, enjoying a life kind of mentality, a challenge to the traditional 9 to 5 way of life that suburbia, kind of put out there. I posted some stuff last week on suburbia, introduced a little video on that to kind of set the stage for this week's conversation that we're going to have. But we're going to look at suburbia and what it was, okay, and what it was used for and why it was challenged and why it just kind of came apart, so to speak, in the traditional way. We still have suburbs, don't misunderstand me, but the notion of the cookie cutter, the Levitt towns and so forth, where everybody's the same, a little different mentality about suburbia today, excuse me, and suburbia then. We're going to look at the role of TV again and the influence of TV, all right, through the 1960s as we look at stuff. So what we want to look at this week is, this kind of cultural shift that's taking place from this kind of buttoned up, typical, urban life, and then we kind of move out into the suburbs, not into that middle ground between rural America and urban America. We find this area that we call the suburbs, which is kind of, again, lots of rules, lots of traditions, the American dream, the American way of life, and this is all what's being challenged now. Okay, by a lot of things that we've talked about, and the dominant culture is going to try to protect that, kind of protect the norms of society. So what we're going to look at now is in the 60s is when it really begins to change. The counterculture now starts to emerge in the 60s, as we'll talk about. And it's not just the pop culture being that friendly little testing the edges. It's the counterculture saying things need to be changed. We have to make changes, and this is what it's all about. So this week, when you're looking at your discussion, and this week they ask you to look at some music here this week. The examples that I've got here, the little boxes, Mother's Little Helper, Pleasant Valley Sunday, which is the kind of the title of this week. Anyway, look at those songs, okay? Listen to those songs, and what we want you to do in the discussion is, what are those lyrics saying about suburbia? What is a message about suburbia? Are they promoting the notion of suburban life? Are they challenging the notion of suburban life? Are they ridiculing? What exactly is the message? What does that say about it? So look at those lyrics of those kinds of songs, and you go into your assignments, just click on there, and it gives you a list of different things, okay? But they're very, very poignant in what they're trying to get across with the lyrics and that about what suburbia is and whether it's an acceptable way of life or not. Again, we have to think in terms of American culture is shifting and changing. Right, and the counterculture is starting to get a foothold, and the dominant culture is very fearful of this. So there's going to be some pushback. Okay. The other thing too, then when you go to the writing assignment, we ask you to go to the TV. We want you to find one show from the 50s and one show from the 60s. Okay, and I'll talk more about this in our live lecture. But the focus on that is civil rights. During, 50, Brown v. Board of Education 54 really opens the door. Montgomery bus boycotts and those things are going on in the 50s. But now in the 60s, civil rights really explodes, really takes off. So what we're asking is, when you look at a show from the 50s and look at the show from the 60s, how are civil rights issues kind of portrayed in that 1950s show versus in the 1960s? Do you see a shift? Okay, if so, how? All right, because that's what we're going to look at. TV now is going to kind of take over and kind of set the stage for how we kind of view issues. TV is going to become very important in how Americans kind of see themselves or how they start to interpret issues. So take a look at that and look at that and go, okay, in the 1950s, civil rights looks like this on TV, or these civil rights issues look like this in the 1960s. So how is that going to change? Okay? All right, as I say, I'll talk more about this in the live lecture, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage for this week and some more challenges to old traditional American culture. And like always, if you ever have any questions, never hesitate to contact me.